Hey everybody, we're going to be talking to Tom Driscoll today. Let me see if I can connect with him. Might take a second. Let me see. I know we've done a test and it did work, but maybe it's going to take Tom a second to get on. Coming up, we have Bucky from the original Bread and Salt radio station. They're talking about bringing the radio station back in a podcast form. So Bucky's going to talk about music, DJing, radio station, all that kind of stuff, and also the other partners in the radio station. We're going to be talking to Beth Ross Buckley from Camerata. Camerata is a music event that happens regularly at Bread and Salt, or was happening regularly. So after that is Adam John Manley. We're also going to be talking to Aaron Skallman, which Aaron is a really great San Diego artist, and his dad's an artist, and it'll be cool to chat with Aaron. Let me see if I with Tom Driscoll. And I see Max Daly noticed my Oslo shirt. And it's a black one. Max hooked me up with a black Oslo shirt, which he told me is one of one. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Hey! Hi. Can you hear me?
Let me increase the volume here a little.
Yeah. Crank the volume.
It's all the way. It's max.
Crank it. I'm realizing I got to adjust my camera here too.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Perfect.
I have your sculpture that I bought from you a while ago. It also is like keeps blending in with my head. It's like a weird.
You know, I spotted that and I said, man, that's a nice piece.
You know, let's talk about that for sure. You know, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
I was a massive fan of your artwork before I ever knew who you were or got to know you or anything or worked with you. Is your phone?
Really?
Yeah. Is your phone just moving?
Yeah, I did that.
So, no, you know this. I mean, I was going to Quint Gallery to see shows a lot when they were in the alley in La Jolla. And I was working at the museum up there, and I would pop over to Quint Gallery in the alley all the time. And I remember there was a show with, I want to say it was this particular piece. I don't know if we identified if it was this piece that was on the wall that I saw, but this was years ago. I don't know what year it was, but
Yeah, it was the same red color. But
yeah, I mean, you have a bunch of these, but I just I couldn't believe what I was looking at with this artwork. It's this, it's this beautiful, odd form and object and everything. But if you take the moment to get closer and you break it down, Michael's already trying to correct me that that's not the piece.
No, not the piece. The piece that you saw was similar, same paint, but a larger, what they are is crushed bottles, like beverage bottles, water bottles that were crushed or melted in the oven and then cooled down under the cold water and then coated with several coats of paint and then the final coat.
So tell me that again though, because you just kind of cruised over the fact that you were putting plastics in your home oven.
Yes, I would put the bottles in the oven at pretty low temperature. And I could see through, it's an old electric oven, I could see the pieces on the steel grill. And at a certain point, they just started to collapse. Like a balloon, they just started to collapse into interesting shapes. And I had to decide at what point do I want to grab those things with my gloves, turn around and put them under the cold water. And they would just lock right into that shape. And so I made some that way. Some of the heavier plastics kind of hard to do with my hands. And a lot of them were just sitting in a chair and just squeezing them and twisting. some of the lighter bottles you could do that. So once I have all of these shapes, then I had to decide on what kind of color I might want to put on them. So
it's funny having a conversation also with Griselda Roses. One of the first times I ever met Griselda, she had told me about burning these sculptures in her home oven. She was baking bread that was embedded with plastics, and she was doing this similar thing. And this was like, probably a decade before she ever met you or something, So
artists use any means they can that's readily available,
right,
to accomplish what they want. So I just want to just dash into the kitchen and put them in the oven.
I feel like you are one of those artists you're just infinitely resourceful in that sense. And I feel like these particular works have always embodied you to me, and that's why I asked you later when we became friends, like, hey, how can I get one of these from you? And you let me go over to your studio, and we looked at a bunch of different ones, and I picked out this one and I bought it from you. But that was a few years ago now too, and I guess I'm probably up to buy another one from you.
Yeah, you've been over several times.
Yeah,
fun.
I guess as we get into this kind of like story of who you are also one of these artists that I had a pleasure of working with at the Contemporary Museum, and you also, Michael James Armstrong and the guys, we asked you to do a show at Ice Gallery. I'm sure Michael can correct me, but you were the last show that we did at Ice Gallery North Park on 30th and Upas. And we didn't really know you that well. We weren't friends. We were all fans of yours. And it was kind of this neat moment of like, getting to form this kind of artist family relationship where we.
I'll tell you the story when I had to hang those 500 pieces at the museum in the Here Not There exhibition.
Here Not There.
Jason Sherry was in the same show, and so I had these 500 pieces and a template to put up on this 40-foot wall. The wall that kind of faces the ocean window there. And you came by, and introduced yourself, and anything you need, let me know. Lee Levy will be your helper. I said, okay.
Yeah, Lee Levy.
Lee popped up, says, I'm ready, man, I'm ready. I said, Lee, there's 500 nails to put on the wall. I said, hey, let's go. So he put the template up, and he started pounding nails in. That's where I met Lee, and when we got through installing all of these pieces, he gave me this flyer. It's an Ice Gallery exhibition.
Huh.
Never heard of it.
Right.
So, just like Jason, I showed up with Richard Allen Morris.
Right.
See the little gallery there? Yeah, let's go take a look. So we kept going to the shows, and Michael appreciated us showing up, and nobody else was showing up.
Right.
Very few. And finally, I invited Michael over. I said, you want to come by and check out the work? He said, sure, yeah. So not long after that, I don't think you were busy, but Lee, Michael, Joey, Hubert, Harmony Murphy,
right,
Michael dropped in on a Sunday and spent a couple hours just poking everywhere and looking at everything. They were quite amazing.
Yeah, anyway, no, but one of the things about your home studio, which I always try to encourage, when we get back to normal, you've always had this open door policy to artists and other creative people that want to just come by and have a talk and, sit in your garden or look at your studio. Your studio is such a perfect model for somebody that wants to attempt the work at home studio, because you have this you have like a clean room for viewing artwork that I can see kind of behind you. You have a fantastic art storage that's been around for all of your life's work. You have it cataloged and organized, and then also on the outside you have this kind of dirty work area that back in the day you had beach sand on the ground, and
oh, it's horrible. I had weeds and spiders, and I was doing work out there, and there were cobwebs, and that's been fixed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a secret entrance on the side of the, I have a side gate, and people come around the corner and, wow, didn't know this was here.
Right.
And
Yeah, and it's fun to talk, go over and talk about gardening or whatever with you because you have such
yeah,
a really neat
but
garden.
that last ice gallery show was one of the best shows I've ever had. I really think about it a lot.
The
And
show that was at the new ice gallery?
no, the old ice gallery, the last show,
Right.
and we went down there. I believe it was you and Michael, maybe Lee. And I walked in and I said, God, it smelled like old rotten wood. There was water on the floor.
Yeah.
There was soap timbers. It looked like a sunken boat. It was just horrible. I
Right.
said, can you guys fix this place up in time for my show? He said, no problem, don't worry about it. I didn't realize the skills that you had, and Lee, and all of you, were just from your museum experience. That place was just transformed.
Right. And, the condition of the building was just like, it reminds me of like an old Western movie set where it's just like a facade and like a fucking disaster in the back. Yeah. But, I remember at that time, Michael was also taking the reins on Ice Gallery and he was kind of leading all the projects, kind of heading from there on out. But he purchased a tarp and you were up on the roof with us with
you and I.
With the biggest tarp I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, 40-foot by 40-foot white heavy gauge tarp that we spread on the entire roof of the gallery.
I feel like it was bigger than that. Michael could probably tell us how big that tarp was. That thing was huge.
I guess there were grommets and you were nailing them into the roof because we didn't want to get flooded out.
Right. I mean, that space was just like a sieve, if it rained even like sprinkled, it was coming in the gallery. And people never knew, but that time was so special. I remember times at Ice Gallery where Robert Irwin might be the only person that showed up. And I'm probably, some people don't like my exaggerated storytelling, but I remember a time where it was like you and Richard Allen Morris coming, or Jason Sherry, or, Jessica McCambly, and, people were just showing up and they were like the only ones there,
Michael Armstrong would be on the outside he was videotaping back then.
Yeah.
He'd be videotaping us inside, just running around discussing the work.
Right.
And he through the window stuff. And that's how we got to know all you guys.
Right. I do want to really back up though. And, now that we've kind of talked about getting to know you and stuff, I want to take that time machine backwards.
Okay.
I know a lot of your stories just from hanging out over the years and stuff, but I would love to kind of get into some of those things that identify you as a human being, how you observe the world as a kid and everything, Do you mind telling us about growing up?
I was born in San Diego right after World War II ended.
When was that?
I looked it up. It was 2 months after the armistice was signed on.
So you're a boomer.
I am definitely a bloomer. There was thousands of births that day. I guess I don't know. A lot of births. Anyway, my father worked at a Convair aircraft plant on the Pacific Highway. They were putting out I don't know how many planes per day, but it was 24/7, 3 shifts.
Right.
And that's where he met my mother. She was working on the airplanes. So spent 8 years in Mission Beach. That's where I grew up. And my brother and I would never wear shoes. We were barefoot. We'd walk on the seawall up to Crystal Pier, walk back, go to the bay, spend the whole day in the bay. We weren't chaperoned at all. The only rule we had was look both ways and get across Mission Boulevard. We had pretty much a paradise because it was not developed very much. There were still vacant lots in Mission Beach. So after 8 years, my father got a job in Chula Vista at War Corporation, which is a big aircraft place. So we moved down there, and I grew up in Chula Vista. There's a connection to Chula Vista, like Daniel and Wendy and Jim Brown.
Griselda?
I don't know. I was in Chula Vista when it was only very small town.
Right. And what high school did you go to in Chula Vista?
There was only two high schools, Tom. There was Chula Vista High and then a brand new Hilltop High.
Right.
So we lived right across from Hilltop High. So that's where I went to school.
Griselda went there. I mean, just to think about that list of artists that probably went there.
But what's strange, I told people there were no freeways when I was like a kid. There's no 5, no 805, nothing.
Right.
So to get to downtown from Chula Vista, you had to take Pacific Highway all the way down through National City and up. So that's weird to tell people that.
I mean, I know what you're saying because I grew up in Lakeside. There was no freeway. There was no 52 freeway. There was no 125. There was none of that stuff.
It was quite beautiful. There were quite a few orchards left because Chula Vista was known for its celery, the celery capital of the world.
Whoa.
There were lemon trees everywhere, big, mature lemon trees. And they started to take those out and build subdivisions.
I would love to talk about the lemon tree thing. I want to also talk about, like, how you encountered art really early. I know that there's a...
Did you hear about that lemon tree story?
I want to hear this. Michael is asking if you can shift your face from the text side. So if you turn to your left a little bit, turn the camera just to the left a little bit.
Okay.
Other way. There you go.
They're good?
Little more. Little more. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. Perfect. So
now, to me, I'm on one side, but we'll go with it.
No, this looks good from my perspective. This is how it'll look.
The lens is up here, so it makes sense.
But, I remember this really early story you told me about encountering a lemon tree branch, or there was a tree. Is that?
Well, they were digging up a lemon orchard not too far from where we lived, and these were big mature trees, and they were, I guess, putting chains around them and bulldozing them out. And in the evening, I went down there and looked at these, and there was a tree, and lying on the ground, it had been cut first. And I asked my dad if he could help me get that thing up to the house.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if he put it on the back of his car with a rope or something. We got it up there. And when he ended up carving into it, it was the most beautiful wood. You couldn't believe it. It actually kind of smelled like lemon, and it was a lemon color wood. It wasn't even fibrous. So I did a couple of carvings in high school out of lemon wood. Unfortunately, they're long gone. They ended up at a library and display, and they disappeared.
So they were displayed. Is that the first time that you encountered art and you were showing it?
Yeah, carving these lemon wood, chunks of lemon wood. And the influential high school teacher, John DeWitt Clark, who was a teacher, came over, and I was hacking away on this tree, and he said to me, he started guiding me how to approach a piece of wood. What do you want to do? You want to make cavities, voids, you want to get some flat surfaces? Let's start thinking about that. So he gave me a couple of books, loaned me a couple of books, Barbara Hepworth, Brancusi,
Whoa, geez.
All of a sudden, you can't just hack on a piece of wood forever until you collapse. You have to think about it.
I mean, I think Brancusi did. I don't think Brancusi was thinking about anything. He's just hacking away. And
well, he's thinking about it when he was attacking it, of course, because you have to follow the grain of the wood, and if there's a knot, you have to maybe go around or something, and then you want to keep the integrity of the what do you have, it's got its own character. So I did a couple of pretty good things.
So what about before that? Were you ever inclined towards art? Were you thinking about art? Were you investigating things? I know there's this great story you told me as a kid where you stuck a piece of metal into a bird of paradise and you killed this bird of paradise.
You've got a memory. Yeah, my parents had this beautiful giant bird of paradise in the patio. It had a trunk about 15 inches wide. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I took a long galvanized spike, a nail, and I shoved it right through the plant. It started oozing some kind of white goo.
Yeah.
And my father found out, he said, I just want to know why. Why did you do it? And my answer was, Dad, I don't know. I don't know. But later on, I realized maybe I just wanted to see what would happen. That's what you do as an artist. You see what happens. You
Right.
add this, add that, push that, see what happens. So here I was seeing what happens, stabbing my parents' plan.
Right, unfortunately. I do think there's a misconception about how the way that artists operate. I think that, the reality of what it is that there's a lot of sitting and pondering and just thinking in your studio. It's a lot of like isolation time.
Absolutely. Like I find myself walking outside here and just stopping because there's something on the ground.
Right.
And I just look at it and I'll catch myself gazing at whatever's on the ground. And I think, geez, you're looking at that pretty seriously. It's almost like a third person out there.
Right. Yeah, the power of observation. It's an incredible device.
Possibilities. Whatever I'm looking at has possibilities to plug into whatever series I was doing or a new series. Case in point, I was crushing some wine box dividers or cardboard dividers, kind of big ones. So I was jumping up and down on them. I was going to put them in the trash. And I had these beautiful shapes all over the ground. They were just abstract crushed shapes. So I retrieved them and I soaked them in shellac, good soaking. And I'll show you one. Don't go away.
This is kind of the exciting thing about going to Tom's studio. He's like, I got this thing. You got to see it. Wow.
This is the results. And they almost came out like wood.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're stiff. They kind of got a golden color.
Well, when did you do those?
2015. There's a little, copper wire sign. And some I painted black. There's a whole series, which I've never shown, of these crushed cardboard things.
Man, and I know you have tons of series like that, and you're totally derailing our chronological order here.
Okay, where were we? Oh, yeah, I went to.
So after
I went to Catholic school.
You went to Catholic school?
Yes, there was a Catholic school in Pacific Beach called St. Bridget's, and there was a Catholic school in the back. So my brother and I would catch the city bus. We had these little passes that they gave us. We had these cute little corduroy pants, white shirt, and burgundy sweaters that said SB or something. Get on the bus, go up to PB, get off on Garnett, and walk to the church in school. So for 3 years, I was staring up at nuns.
Right. That's elementary school?
Yes, it was first, second, third grade. But I remember sitting in my class, and I had my desk was sort of towards the window. One day I was daydreaming, and I stare out the window, and it's after a storm, and I could see these whitecaps out in the ocean from where I was. These little, whiffy little whitecaps that I could see from my window in school.
Right.
So that's the kind of memories that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that stuff's powerful as a kid, and it's funny how it comes back even as an adult, moments like that.
I don't remember anything about the Dick and Jane books or anything like that.
Right. What about like thoughts on going to art school or college or anything like that?
After getting to Chula Vista, I was a loner. I don't think I had any friends like in junior high school. I was kind of by myself. So when it came to graduation time from high school, I had no direction. I had no support system from my parents. They had no inclination to sit down with me and say, "What do you want to do?"
Why do you think you were such an outcast as a kid? You had your older brother.
It just happened. My brother's total opposite. He's an extrovert, talking guy. So I was the quiet one, and maybe that's why I started to look at things that he wasn't looking at.
Hmm.
You know, I had a lot of time.
Did you guys have art in the home, or was anybody
No,
inclined towards
no,
art?
not at
Or
all. My parents had no art at all. They just were regular folks.
what did your
And
mom do? She was kind
well,
of an athlete, right? Or what was
both
she?
my parents came from athletic families. My dad was a football player in college. It was a Catholic college in Grand Forks, North Dakota, I think. I have beautiful photographs of him flipping the ball and stuff.
Hmm.
My mom was an athlete here in town. She was born and raised in San Diego, and she was a tennis player and in volleyball.
Hmm.
And I think at one time a coach maybe wanted to train her to go pro.
Huh.
Uh, Having two kids kind of sabotaged that part.
Yeah, I'm sure
So,
it's not easy raising a family at any point, but
yeah, so they got into bowling. I did a little bit too. I had a lot of trophies in the house. And but as far as art, none of us, family wise, knew a thing. And high
so
school,
after high school, you're just kind of wandering around. And what year is this? I mean, what? Give us context
I
into
graduated 1963.
man.
I graduated, a class of 500 or something like that, a lot of people. So I'm wandering around by myself at home, a single parent by that time.
Were
So what
you
did I
a
do?
were you
I
kind of
joined the
a
army.
were you a beatnik? What were you doing? That's like pre-hippie. Like, what were you? Who were you hanging out with? Or well, you said you were a loner, but uh,
Nobody, I wasn't hanging out with anybody. It's just,
that's crazy.
I had a paper route throughout high school, a little paper route. So I
Me
got out of
too.
high school and doing my paper route. Uh, I mean, it wasn't completely isolated.
So did you have a plan, like kind of wandering around? Were you getting odd jobs, or did you have like a trajectory
No,
plan?
I had no clue. I did get a job at Roar Aircraft Corporation. My dad got me a job. It was a cleanup job in a hangar. So what I do is blow these rivets underneath the pipes and get them all cleaned up, stuff like that.
Oh,
So then I joined the army. I said, oh, why join the army? A lot of people do that. They said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So there was a recruiting office behind the old Greyhound bus station downtown on Broadway.
oh
So
yeah.
I walk in, there's a guy behind a wooden desk, sergeant. He said, have a seat, son. Have a little talk. Before I knew it, I was in. And he said, have your dad come down. We'll have a little chat. Okay. So next thing you know, I'm on a bus heading to LA. That's where the recruitment
So
stuff was.
had your brother already enlisted, or what
No,
made you go and join?
my brother got drafted during the Vietnam War, so he came in after me.
But your brother's older than you.
Yeah, yeah, he was. But he held out until he got a draft notice. It was during the height of the Vietnam War. So,
Man, you're so lucky that you joined pre-Vietnam.
well, that's what I tell people. It's ironic that I'm in during the Vietnam War is heating up, and I'm uh, I'm almost to get out, right? I only have an hour of a year to get out, so I'm not eligible to go to Vietnam. So this thing happened. So I get out, don't have to go to any kind of war. My brother gets drafted, and he goes to Vietnam. He's okay, gets out fine, but.
But you've told me a lot of stories about close calls with your brother, like a bullet, coming
Well,
past or helicopter
he had
crashes.
five. Yeah, does the cat have how many lives? I don't know. He had 5 close calls, uh, helicopter crashes, exploding artillery rounds that came in short, uh, pungy arrows sticking him in the belt, and he's only had 4 or 5 times he should have been a goner.
Mhm.
So,
Was there while you were in the service, was there any kind of art thought, or did you meet other people from around the world that were, talking about art or?
not at all. No, I was totally in my own realm, and what inspired me about being in the army was the hardware they had. Like being in in an airplane, looking out the window. At one time there was a flight. We were going to jump out of a big old airplane, propeller driven, and all the aluminum surfaces were shiny. You know how it's just glowing, polished cowlings around the engines, and I'm staring at this thing, and you can see the wing kind of moving in the wind.
I can
And
see you just all suited up, hooked into the
yeah,
the parachute shit, and
yeah.
the officer probably telling you you're about to jump, and you're just staring at a bunch of shiny
Well,
rivets.
thinking about it later, I realized I was observing constantly. I even observed the guys in my barracks. A lot of the guys came from the inner city, Chicago, New York, Rhode
Mm-hmm.
Island, and a lot of interesting language going on the other side of the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was just a green guy from California.
From Southern California.
Yeah, I hear these guys talking about everything, and every other word is a cuss word, you know.
Yeah. You know, Daniel is saying that he can't hear. I wonder if other people can't hear. I don't know why he's saying that. I can hear you fine. Maybe you need to talk
Okay,
louder. I don't know.
I'll try. Yeah.
But so after your military service, where did you end up in San Diego?
Well, I came back home and took advantage of the GI Bill. You can sign up and get a couple $100 a month for a year or two.
Right.
Just like Jim Brown, I went to Southwestern College.
So many people went to Southwestern, you know.
Yeah.
I think
So it
Southwestern
was,
should have, Southwestern needs like a plaque or a dedication
it's got to
wall to
be.
identify all these people.
Yeah.
Um,
And I was there. I enrolled in 1966. So that was when Bob Matheny was bouncing around, teaching all kinds of classes. John Baldessari was a faculty member. A painter from New York City, Gary Hudson, was there teaching.
man,
A bunch of people. And the place was really jumping. As far as art.
let's dip into that a little bit. So, what did you just go for general education, and then you stumbled into the art department where
You
John
know,
Baldessari is teaching?
I was leaning towards art. I said, well, I should take art. But I had to take all these other general education courses, which I did really badly in C's and D's. But I would take a course up on the other side of campus, like history or astronomy, and then run down to the art department and start carving on a piece of marble. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get my hands on material. But I didn't know much about the network in San Diego. There wasn't much going on except for the UCSD,
Right.
because they had established a new art department with Paul Brock, and he invited all these faculty members to come out and teach.
Yeah, Idalasconga was probably there too, right?
Longo was there, Miriam Shapiro was there, Newton Harrison and Helen Harrison.
Right.
Harold Cohen? Is it Harold?
So what year was that you were going at Southwestern when all that was kind of starting to happen?
Yeah, it was all starting to work pretty good.
What year?
This would be 66, 67.
Okay.
And then Baldessari would start inviting, because he was all around. He was in LA, he was in the La Jolla Museum, he was university, he was really moving around. And he would invite people for this lecture series, like in the evening at 7 o'clock. And it was great because he'd invite people from LA, artists from LA, to come down and chat. And so you realize there's another world out there besides your little art world. There's some people.
Right, and Wendy Murayama mentioned that need as a young person to realize that there's a whole entire world out there that might be happening outside of your box.
And it's professional. It's there's a toughness that I saw in these people. one time there was cigar smoke. Somebody on the stage was smoking a cigar, and so there was whiffing a cigar smoking. You know.
Who were some of the artists or speakers that you saw?
I remember Bob Irwin, Paul Brock from the university. He was the department chairman. I think Big Daddy Roth from LA. He was an artist.
Whoa, that's cool.
I think, don't quote me, but I believe there was somebody like maybe like that guy. But there were more than one sessions. Like the next session was some guy. He flew down from LA, and Molisari met him at the airport, drove him back to Southwest. He was an hour late, and he arrived with a suitcase and a cassette recorder, which he's sticking in our faces as he walks into the lecture room. And he didn't do anything. He just sort of rambled. And the dean, the arts dean, was in the front seat. I remember the dean of the arts. Oh, he's in the front seat. And somebody yelled from the back, "Where's the art?" You want art? He opens the suitcase. And I think it was a flag, American flag, and some other stuff flew out. And then it was really unusual performance artist on stage. That's what he was. And I think I asked Bob Matheny who it might have been. I can't remember, but that was pretty good. Plus, the shows that they were booking in the gallery were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that time, like, we just celebrated the Bruce Nauman sculpture that they purchased at Southwestern College. I mean, holy shit! Like Southwestern College,
people. I was a student. I was a student when they decided to purchase that. It was a couple of $1,000 of student money, ASB money, and a lot of controversy. Even the local Chula Vista Star News got involved.
Right. I mean, that's such an interesting story, and people can read a lot about that other places. But I just think, like, Southwestern College at that time, they have Robert Matheny as the director of the gallery. He's bringing artists like Robert Irwin, and they're purchasing work by Bruce Nauman, and they also have John Baldessari on staff.
Yeah.
Like, this is a community college in South Bay.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think when they were jurying the entries for the sculpture purchase award, well, look who they have looking at proposals: John Baldessari, Bob Matheny.
Right.
And they're like, well, here's one.
Right. So, you know, after you spent time at Southwestern, what were your thoughts? And were you working odd jobs, or were you living at home? What were you doing? What was the next kind of?
No, I was just living in little apartments, roommates, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I always found a job, but, you know, I just always found a part-time job, and some weren't too pleasant. For instance, one job I worked from 1 o'clock in the morning until 8 in the morning. My job was to blow down all the popcorn in the theater, along with this other guy on the other side. So we had these blowers that were hooked up on our back. So we started.
Were they gas powered?
All this popcorn's going down to the bottom, and out of that by ourselves. It was a Naval Station Theater, I think, on 32nd Street. And I would get off that job and drive to Southwestern College for my first class.
Oh my God! After not sleeping?
Not just like this.
Yeah.
And I'd end up sleeping on the grass. It was horrible.
But you've always been a night owl.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. Like, what do you think that is, and what?
Well, the easiest job for me to get, fortunately, I was not a skilled technician. I wasn't a machinist or a tech guy or a mechanic. So I knew I really couldn't get a job anywhere that was, serious, where you had to learn stuff and concentrate and go to work and have bosses.
Right.
My source of income for all those years was basically custodial. I'd see a job listed in the paper that said custodial wanted Bank of America downtown. They were hiring custodians. I just walked on down there and said, yeah, can you start tonight? Yeah. So I had these little jobs, but it gave me time during the day to work on my art. And then the custodial jobs, I did gain some things out of those jobs. Here again, observation, being alone.
Mm-hmm.
No one's looking at what you're doing, so I'm looking at all their shit.
Right. Well, you also told me there was a strategy, and you kind of alluded to it, and I know Richard Keeley also has, and a few other people, that kind of like work life situation where you have to make money. There's a dual thought in like, how can I maximize my work time and also try to have enough time to work on my own artwork and studio life. So that was a thought in your head, is that you don't want to waste a lot of energy on
No.
work stuff when you can get by doing, dusting computers or emptying trash and stuff like that, and then have excess time to be thinking about what you want to think about.
Yeah, it's risky. It's very risky because I could have been sidetracked who knows where.
Mm-hmm.
Almost whatever. And I got very lucky. I was able to find jobs. And then I found a good one. Patty Ann, who had a Patty Ann gallery downtown. She worked at University Hospital as a receptionist. One day I walked in her gallery and she said, "Here, Tom, here's a job bulletin. You might be interested in a cleanup job." And it was a half-time position at a research lab in Point Loma, oceanographic research lab. Half-time, full benefits. So,
what does that mean, half-time or part-time?
Well, a lot of times back then, if you worked less than 50%, you had no benefits. And a lot of the jobs were offered at 40% or 45%. This one was 50% with the full range of benefits. I mean,
wow.
Health, everything. So,
what was the caveat, though? What was the?
I was kind of reluctant to take that job. I was really a fool. I said, well, I guess I'll check it out. And I ended up staying with the university and this oceanographic laboratory situation for 23 years. And my routine was to go at work at 4
p.m.
Yeah, 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Everybody else going the other way, the direction way. You go in there and clean the place up, do maintenance, check door locks, things like that, pretty basic. And worked out really well because they had a lot of stuff that that I observed in that laboratory. They had an in-house shop. So
right, I mean, I can see the piece behind you right there. Is that something that you found in the dumpster? Over? Can you show us that and explain some of this stuff?
Well, you know about the dumpster, right? Famous dumpster story.
Tell us.
Part of my job was to dump all the trash that I had bagged. This includes shadings from the machine shop, whatever it be. Put them in my golf cart and drive around to the yard where there was a 20-foot dumpster. And that was a highlight of the day for me because you don't know what's in there.
Right. You're like, yes, let's get to work. Let's go.
Yeah. I jump out, open that thing up, big heavy door, and whoa, dive in.
Yeah.
Other times it's empty. They've dumped the thing. And I found so much stuff. It's all cast off underwater oceanographic hardware that they no longer use. They can't recycle it. So what do we do with this? I'll throw it away. So here comes Tom. And this is one example that I just love this. This is called a hydrophone. It's very heavy rubber. And inside of this thing is some microphones. So they would string a bunch of these together out in the ocean, drop them in the ocean, and back on the research vessel they would be listening. So I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, they toss all these out.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at that particular object, I can just tell because of all the work I've seen of yours, like you deconstructed that particular unit, whether it's whether it's
I did.
form building or resins or objects embedded, you basically took this kind of observational understanding of an object and started to make it your own.
Yeah. And as the years went by, I realized the subliminal input is there all the time. You're seeing things, aware of.
Right.
And then later on, I know where I got that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. And that idea actually led to some resin castings. So that had to have come from what I found.
Yeah, so at that same time, all around the world in the contemporary art world, a lot of artists were looking towards industrial materials, and that's incredible. You had access to this kind of like weird encyclopedia of industrial materials that you were just on your own deconstructing.
Yeah, and nobody else in the world had the opportunity I had to scavenge
Right.
this stuff.
I think of a lot of artists that were dealing in resin in the early 60s or 70s, like Helen Pashkian or Peter Alexander or Dwayne Valentine or all these artists that were also doing that stuff. Were you looking towards those artists?
Yeah. I really admired those artists. In fact, there was a Dwayne Valentine mass cast resin that he developed with Hastings Plastics in LA.
Yeah, they're pouring 50-gallon drums of
resin. 55-gallon drums, no masks, and they're pouring these shots. What could I do?
Right.
So I did some small polyester resin castings, and but I was always really amazed at what they could do and the volume and the money they could spend.
Speaking of kind of like stories that happen in the background, I know you also worked at Rid Out Plastics or pre-Rid Out, right? Or like a plastic store.
Boy, you've done your research. Yeah, I was on unemployment for about a year, living at Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd focus on crafted wood boxes and maybe try to sell them with a friend up there. We had a little shop.
Wood boxes.
Yeah, I got a couple of them around. They were too much work, not enough money in to pay back right. Made from avocado wood, really beautiful.
I love the idea of you and a friend in Campo building wood boxes.
It's freezing little shop he had, and the guy had no talent at all. Bless him, he almost cut his fingers off a couple of times. I'm making these beautiful things, but I realized I don't want to go this direction.
Right.
So, anyway, you have to apply for so many jobs when you're on unemployment so you're making an effort to find work. So I drove down from Campo and I dropped by Rid Out Plastics. And at that time, they were in another location. And here again, they said, "You've got a little experience here with, can you start Monday?" I said, "Man, sure, I start Monday."
Yeah.
I may have delayed it for a week, but I was a cutter on a table saw in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody would come to the will call window, they'd pick up their cut plastic that I had cut or somebody else had cut. And my first job was cutting 1/8-inch mirrored plexiglass into dining placemat. So all day. And I had little flecks of mirror all over my body. Just
mm-hmm.
But here again, dumpster digging, I found the chunks of plexiglass that were discarded. They were the edges of these 4-inch thick slabs that they tossed.
Right.
And maybe there's one right behind me, if you can see it or
not.
It's big chunks of plex. So I grabbed them, and then they became artwork.
Yeah, I'm afraid this is going to end up being a two-part video, but I'm wondering, were you showing artwork at that time at Patty Ann Gallery, or who were you kind of hanging out with or palling around with at that time? Did you already get to hang out with Richard Allen Morris and
Yeah, that was a big turning point. I was living in Hillcrest in a little apartment, and something out there told me, you gotta find the artist, you've got to go downtown.
hmm
So I went downtown. I walked into Richard's bookstore, bargain books, and Richard's got his face in a book he's marking. And
is this Warren Brock's?
no, it's the one before that,
Oh,
bargain book, little place. And he looked up and says, "Tom." I said, "Yeah, I understand you're living in a building, a broker's building somewhere." He said, "Yeah, the guy you want to see his name is Hannum." So he writes a name down, and Hannum has a carpet company on the ground floor. So anyway, I rent a place for $150 a month, and it faces Market Street, looking down at the Sun Cafe.
right.
Richard's got the main core of the building, no windows. He's in there somewhere, right? So that's where I met Richard. We started having meals in the evening. Get home from work. You get home from work, go out and have a buffet somewhere, a Chinese buffet.
You know,
Big,
I also had a studio in the Brokers Building. I've told you this.
no,
That's
yeah,
where Michael Armstrong and Joseph Hooper also had studios there. I had my studio next to them. That's how
yeah,
we all kind of like started hanging out. And our
yeah.
place
This
was
was,
Psalms.
you know what year that was when I moved in there? 1980.
Um,
So that a lot's changed. The Brokers
right.
Building sold, and then it was divided up and cut up into little cubes. But when we were there was a sprinkling of artists that just sort of used what they had space-wise.
And I know downtown was a hell of a different story back then.
Oh God! At 2 in the morning, you hear this screaming and
Yeah.
yelling and things being thrown in the street. There was a jazz club right down from my window. I think it's called Crossroads.
Hmm.
They'd be making music and yakking away, and a lot of just nightlife that's not there now. And,
I remember you telling us stories about Richard having to barricade his studio closed
yeah.
because somebody was in the building with an axe or something. They were chopping doors.
Well, somebody broke in. It was just he and I were the only ones left because they had sold the building. So on the floor, it's just he and I, and we heard this crashing sound. Someone had broken in the door, and they were going down the hallway, and each room had like this wired glass dentist's office at one time or a lawyer's office, and they were trying doorknobs, I guess, and they missed mine. They went right by mine.
Hmm.
I'm in my shorts, kind of listening. And I heard this. They broke a door down, and they stole some camera stuff from a woman artist up there.
Hmm.
So it's funny. Like the next day, I swear, when Richard got home from work, I heard this pounding. Bam, boom, bam, boom, and he's putting a big piece of like inch plywood over his door with I don't know how many nails. And he was always very angry with people that wanted to bust in and stuff like that. So he was going to make his place foolproof. And he had a guy come in and get into his attic. He came in from the stairway and somehow got up into the attic.
Mm-hmm.
And up there like a animal.
So the whole kind of story of that is that downtown was a much different place, and
Yeah,
I
there
know.
were.
I know, like Quint Gallery originally started downtown, and the Museum of Contemporary Art also had a Broadway space.
Yeah, that come a little bit later. There were a core group of 3 artists that were downtown: Gary Garardi, Richard, and I.
I know Barbara Sexton was also.
Sexton would come down, and Alan Morrow would come down. They had day jobs, and a little group that would come down. And even before that, David Richardson had a little studio.
Oh, right.
As Bob Metheny, they would rent little storefronts for nothing and have a little time there. So they had some shows, 552 Gallery was one, a nice little show space.
Hmm. I think we should just end this video and I'll re-add you. Just stay on and we should keep talking. I just don't want it to boot us off. It gets really clumsy.
Has it been an hour?
55 minutes. And if we go over, if we keep talking, it'll just kick us off and it's a problem. So let's just make this a part 2. So just stay on and re-add me. So okay. I'm gonna end this and I'll re-add you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.